Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Dwight Smith out in, what's it called? Kansas City? Man,
Kansas City.
I always love it when you get the tongue, the tip of your tongue thing right at the most important moment.
It always happens. It always happens like that.
Cool. Well, you were introduced to me by Cesar Lopez, who is a Guatemalan artist. He did an episode where we talked about, it's called From Guatemala with Love. It was pretty recent. We had a really interesting conversation. He had a lot of nice things to say about you. Are you an artist, or are you like, what, how do you identify?
I identify as an art collector.
Okay, cool.
So I try to get that kind of specificity instead of getting some vague, really out the box kind of description. I collect art.
No,
I
I
collect
love
art.
that. I think you might be after 200 some odd episodes, you might be my first collector. So that just means I'm coming up in the world.
Cool. Smooth.
Talking to the money people.
Thank you for having me.
Well, okay, cool. Well, first of all, I mean, I usually start with like people's art origin story, and I don't see why not. When did you start? Like, just because you don't identify as an artist doesn't mean that your art journey didn't start somewhere. So I'm very curious about that. I always find that a really interesting insight into why people like art and all of that. So did you grow up in Kansas City?
Oh, no. I was a Berkeley baby. I'm born in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
The Bay Area. So that's home and will always be home for me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so at a very early age, we were always surrounded by arts. I'm Gen X hard, so
Yeah.
I was Berkeley Gen X. So just imagine 70s in Berkeley. That was me as a kid. So it don't, to all the motherfuckers freaking out there, it don't get no more unleashed than Berkeley in the 70s. Holla at your boy. And look at me, I'm here collecting art, doing respectable shit. So, you can survive, baby. You can survive. So that was my experience. So I had a real early experience where I was surrounded not only by art, but the artists themselves. Berkeley in the 70s was off the chains, yo. You never know who was pulling up to the crib, and it's just funny, some of the conversations that I had with my dad as a young man and as I grew into a man. It's just hilarious how he was so critical of like these famous people. I won't name any of them, but he used to cut those motherfuckers up. But it was that interpersonal relationship where I became very close to art and artists at the same time. When I was I was under 10, formative years and stuff. So, art was always important in the household. Art was
Nice.
always something that, it wasn't a thing above the couch. It was, oh, this is so and so, and they would come by and they would talk about it, and you learned about it, from the authentic source. So, just always immersed in the arts. My parents had original art that they got from their artist friends. Like I said, this is Berkeley in the 70s, and it was just a different time. So that exposure, along with, as I grew, my mom worked at the Smithsonian for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
And, that was a great experience, just being able to see behind the curtain. I think that kind of like embedded in my head where I was like, at first you always, want to be an artist. That is such a beautiful profession, but as I grew and the experiences that I had were more related to kind of one, the preservation of those ideas and maintaining them and being able to showcase them to a group of people, hopefully down the road. So I got that experience. And then, of course, collecting or being naturally close to art. And it just kind of just kept evolving. Yes, I did have my artist phase, but
You did? Okay.
you got to. I mean, you have to have that phase to kind of understand some of what the artist goes through.
Yeah,
But hey,
yeah.
I had to tap out. Hey, I ain't gonna lie. That's a rough lifestyle. I like to buy art. Not have to rely on selling it. Woo, that's a hard life.
I know.
So I had to tap out. But I still had that urge and that want and that need and that affinity to be and make center art in my life.
That's awesome, though. I respect that. So during your artist phase, when was that? Did you go to art school at one point, or?
No, I did not go to art school.
Okay.
I was always trying to emulate the works that my mom, my dad would discuss, their favorites. I used to look at the postcards that my mom and dad would exchange, and
Okay.
I still have some of them now. It'd be it an anniversary or whatever, but they would use the coolest fucking postcards of some of these great post-war artists, and it was just the way that they would exchange their love. My dad was a Jim Dine, Stuart Davis fan. My
Oh, okay.
mom was heavy on Georgia O'Keeffe. But then she also liked some of the. My mom, you got to slip in them some Bob Thompson or some William H. Johnson with my mom. So it was just nice to see how they would communicate. Just something as light, hey, happy Valentine's Day, but the card was fucking jazzy, yo. So this is game. That's real game. I was like writing down. So I think that level of complexity and understanding the importance of that transference of love with that image. I was
No,
like, that's hot. I was
that
like, that's hot.
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to do that. I want to catalog that. I want to be able to quantify that. And then, then I think all collectors have the collector bug. And for me, when I was young, I used to collect comic books.
Okay.
And then that just got me with the order, the precision, the boxes, and all that, and maintaining. So that was warm up for this.
I love that because I've definitely, I mean, I always feel a kinship to people that were into comics, but usually I
Oh,
have people that are artists that started doing what you were doing with the postcards, but with the comic books, which I'm sure you did as well because
oh,
you
yeah,
can,
absolutely. Still do it now. Still do it now. Collecting right now. You don't ever quit collecting comic books, baby.
so what are your big ones actually? Who are your favorites?
Some of my favorite stories were the stories that were shared to me by folks that weren't from this nation. So like, I didn't find out about Akira, the OG Akira.
The manga,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that was just gangster. And I got
That's like
somebody gave me one
seven
of.
books or something. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
and
was
they're
like, yeah,
big.
that one.
They're
And
like,
somebody gave me one of those. Like I think I had like issue 3 and 4. There was like black with the one solid color up
yeah,
top,
yeah,
and I was
yeah,
like, and I only had 2 episodes, and I was like, I want some more of this. So
yeah, yeah.
that was kind of like my introduction from just homies in the Bay Area hooking me up with different flavors. So
Were you reading
Akira,
those? Were you reading Akira before the movie came out?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Before the movie,
jeez.
well, I
Okay.
probably just it was like OG, like before the Marvel drop,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to this day, I have a few. I still have being living in LA for quite some time, bouncing around all around Cali. There used to be this badass shop called Mandarake in LA back in the early aughts, late. I mean, I think it was the early aughts. That's when I was last shopping there. And Mandarake you could get like these fantastic, just rough. They just had a stack of their manga, all their books and stuff just sitting right there. You could get them. You could buy used ones for like $1, right? So I go
Nice.
I just load up with those and come home and just be like, what? They're just peeping stories, and they would sell animation cells and stuff like that. So that was an easy way for me to like really start to find branches and sequels from this Marvel DC kind of quagmire. After a while, then I was there before like they got into all the foil covers and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff that was used more as a marketing ploy as Marvel was developing and changing pre-movies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pre-movies, I think they were trying to find identity in themselves, so they were doing a lot of gimmicky stuff. But the early attempts at the Wolverine miniseries, just bananas. I think that really got me into preservation
Okay.
because I tried to see how many 4 series that I could collect, and then each one I was like, I'm not even opening this one. I thought I was shit because I was like, I'm gonna put this in the plastic with the sleeve, and I really developed a sense of I need to preserve
Okay.
this, and it kind of lodged into the collecting part of my DNA.
That's amazing. I definitely remember the foil covers. That was
Mhm.
more
Yeah,
90s, 80s, 90s.
90s,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They were bananas with the fun. And some of them are hot. Don't get me wrong, but it was like
No,
every issue.
but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I just remember I bought the first issue of Venom that was
Hmm.
foil, and then I realized and then I was like, oh, this is gonna gain so much value, and then I went to the store and I was like, oh no, that's the one, that's the cover, the limited edition one. Do you have
Yeah.
do you for the comic book nerds out there? Do you have any super
Oh,
valuable ones?
I have grails all over the place, but
Okay,
I think
you know
that's
you're a collector when you say Grails.
yeah. I got a bunch. I mean, I don't even. I mean, I used to like hound when comic book stores would close or go under or be consolidated or picked up, and I would just slide in and was able to get some really good deals on books
uh,
that I believed. would make great movies,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
would,
yeah.
so I remember pre-movie, I was telling folks, I said, man, the first person that makes a good Avengers movie is going to cash out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so mainstream, but you can put all the superheroes basically in the Marvel universe into that series. And then little bits started coming out, like Daredevil and Elektra. Those were horrible Marvel excuses, but I think that they made some changes when they brought new people to the team, and they started at least trying to maintain a modicum of canon,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
was already great, and was legendary on its own, and so it really didn't need to be changed. It's like, okay, how do we condense this, introduce it to 7 billion people real quick? Uh,
But the 70s, that's like peak Marvel, right? Like that's kind
oh,
of
peak
what
Marvel,
like
peak
because they
Marvel,
started
peak Marvel.
in the 60s, because that's the thing, the difference
Hmm.
between DC Comics and
Hmm.
DC's about to go into public domain. Their main character,
Oh,
like Batman, that's going to be crazy when
mhm.
Batman is like anyone can just make one and not get sued. Like that's going to be interesting.
I'm a,
Batman's
I'm a, I'm a Christian Bale Batman. That,
Oh,
that's
really?
that's that
Yeah.
that for me. That Dark Knight. That's it for me. There is no other Batman. I'm
You didn't
sorry.
like the
They
Matt
did.
Reeves?
No, Bane was done the best, and I base it on I think the best Joker was in Nolan's work. I think
I give you that for sure, for sure.
the best Bane was in Nolan's work. They
The
ain't got the bad guys right.
the best Two Face also. But
Oh,
you didn't like the last one that came out?
they're okay. They're okay.
Okay, okay, that's fair
I'll give
enough.
them. I'll give them room to expand.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
well, they better expand real quick, because I think the gravity that Nolan brought to and that's the gravity that Batman usually, his gravitas is what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
brought me to Batman, because he was one of the few DC characters that I even was like, okay, I'll read this shit, because it wasn't this fantastical. I mean, he had fantastical bullshit money, but that was it. That was his
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
superpower. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
now how do you move?
And it's also just funny how his wealth has to grow as inflation continues. Where he's
Right?
he was
It's
a
like
millionaire.
this guy's on the back. He's on the wrong team, just trying to make up for this shit. We're doing
Um,
some reverse philanthropy bullshit. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean it's so dark, and it is one
Mm,
of those like the fascist undertones of like a man
mm,
taking it into his own hands is always interesting.
mm.
I think after years and years of reading comics, it's really hard for me to say that Batman isn't my home. It's not it like any
Mm.
because that universe is so expansive. I love that people came here to listen to an insightful conversation about collectors. And we're
And we
like,
breaking down comic books.
this is how it goes though. I love it. I love it. Well, okay, cool. So then
Mm.
let's transition a little bit more. Like what was do you have like a memory of the first piece of art you collected, and then maybe the first piece of art you collected wasn't the moment where you decided
You
like
know
I'm a
what?
collector.
I give you the moment I sold my first piece of art, because I think
Okay.
that was more pivotal.
Okay.
And this is what I knew at that moment. This was viable.
Okay.
So again, I'm a Berkeley baby. We live on Ashby Street, right off of Telegraph. This is like 1976. I'm doing a bunch of drawings and shit,
How old are you? Can
and
I ask?
I'm like 6 years old. I'm
6 years
like
old.
6 years
Okay.
old, 76, and I'm hanging out in front of the house on Ashby Street, because kids played outside. We was
I
boom
remember.
out front riding the bikes, playing hide and go seek. And then my mom would always, like, I always had to go inside at a certain time, like around like 2, just to have like some inside creativity time besides just running around like a wild kid on the streets. So I would come in and I would draw for a couple hours, or I would listen to music, or I'd play the xylophone or whatever, play the recorder or whatever.
Do you still play
Um,
xylophone?
Nah, I gave up all the instruments. I used to play trumpet. Trumpet kind of lasted throughout a certain phase of life, but that's kind of like mandatory. You got to go to school. Hey, do an activity.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and my activity was trumpet.
Okay.
At an early age. So, I thought that was my creative outlet. So, bam, I'm thinking, I'm thinking, I'm out on the street with I say, you know what? I'm gonna go outside with these. And then I was like, I, s- Berkeley had a real early culture of sharing,
Mm-hmm.
and putting together things that people created, and
Yeah.
then they would offer them. So they had like this BART thing where at BART stations, many of the BART stations would be taken over by vendors. And it wasn't even like, it was just people would just pull up.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so I had my drawings and I went out on Ashby Street and I put like 25 cent for like some small ones, like on the little thin notepad. Then I had a couple of, full 8.5 by 11s. I was charging like $1.25 for those,
But in the
and then
70s, so that was like a lot.
oh yeah,
A
dude, I
lot
was
more. Yeah,
banking. This
yeah.
was like, dude, I made like 375. I was gangstering up in the store. Phew, man, 375 back in the 70s with some candy, and you're 6 years old, you could come
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So I sold a few of these to people walking by, yo, and then that's when I realized that, in me, it was instilled in me that you can create and exchange it, and people will compensate you for it. I
That's
was like,
awesome.
what? I was like, what? And that was 6 year old, like,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
core moment, and it was really just my mom, like, okay, because I was telling her, hey, mom, I'm going outside and sell these. She's like, okay, take a cup, be out there. And she like prepped me. She's like, be able to present your stories. Tell what is the name of this one, have titles. So I did all that shit. I
Wow.
had the title. And I went out there and people were like, tell me about this. And I was like, okay, the red dog. And boom, boom, I tell them a little story about the red dog. Boom. And the people I think they were just taken aback by my little ass out there selling these
Yeah, dude.
squiggly lines. But they bought it, and and I went and bought candy. But that was a core moment, and I think that's what kind of endeared me to the practice of creation and development, and then trying to, see if we can eat off of this.
That's awesome. Because it makes me think of like a high-minded lemonade stand, you know?
Yeah, 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 exactly.
It's
Straight
like
up.
it's like this person is not just creative enough to like try to sell lemonade, but like it's just making stuff and selling it. That's great. That's an awesome
Yeah,
story. Thank you for sharing that.
no problem, no problem.
Well, okay,
Absolutely.
so then how long have you officially identified as a collector of art specifically? Because obviously you've been a collector your
Yeah.
whole life.
Well, I was stationed in Germany back in the 90s.
Were you in the
Pretty much,
military?
yeah, I was in the military. I was in the Army for 26 years, retired, U.S. Army Major, Engineer, Sappers Lead the Way guy. So, yeah, so I was in Germany for a really great time in the arts.
Uh-huh.
And remember, I'm carrying all this Cali, Berkeley vibe. Art is still a part of me. So, a lot of guys in the barracks were really creative. There were things that folks were doing, like, joining little art clubs. Oh, hey, there's gonna be an art opening. And it was just popping to do anything in Europe at the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I kind of fell into art scenes like in Mannheim. Mannheim was popping in the 90s. Mannheim, Germany,
Hmm.
yo, you want to get down with some, that was like when techno was really popping, the art scene there. They had some really great Kunstvereins between Heidelberg and Mannheim that were popping. So I'm frequenting all this shit early 90s, but with the German lens. Germans on some different shit. Berlin, they out there. They doing some different
No,
angle with the art. The
yeah,
camera,
yeah, yeah.
you like German, and then boom, but it hit so hard
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I started incorporating that kind of vibe into what I was looking at, and then I started buying. So I started buying art at a lot of the bookstores in Germany because the bookstores would double as art galleries and frame shops, especially in Germany. And it was just a thing that they like kind of connected books, art frames, and boom. So I'd be up in these spots and I would see local artists and I ask questions. I'd say, hey, what's that little symbol they all have? Because they had their name, then they had a symbol. Oh, that's the Kunstverein. So my first experience was learning that it was basically like a little, like, what we have where a bunch of artists get together and then they start a space.
Okay.
But they pay dues and they have shows and they really work to project that artist out there. So I was hanging out in these circuits, getting access to, really forward art or being exposed to really cool stuff, really great museums. And I was just popping around. And then, being in Europe, it's just easy to pop to, hey, let's slide over to Paris real quick and go check out this, boom, boom. And I wasn't chasing art, but I wasn't avoiding it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was able to acquire some really good pieces. And I was in the military at the time, so I wasn't trying to grab a lot, but I knew the importance just from my earlier age of having art to commemorate a time, a space, in the
Yeah.
place where you had been. So, I started copping, some really cool pieces in Germany. And then when I got back to the States, it kind of, it increased quite a bit as I would say like the early 2000s. I really started focusing on California artists,
Hmm.
and artists out of San Diego. I remember at the time there was this white dude. This was my first, I call it television sighting. It was on Orange County Housewives, and it
Okay.
was like you get to glance at the wall, So I'm always looking at rich folks' walls and shit in these TV shows. I don't give a shit about what they're saying. I don't give a shit. Let me see your fucking wall. That's some collector logic right there. I'm like, let's see if this motherfucker is really about life. So I'm looking at the walls, and boom, I saw this one piece, and I was like, ooh, I gotta have that. So I knew then I was really collecting. That
Okay.
was the moment I said, okay, now I'm doing the TV chase. When you start
Yeah,
chasing
yeah,
shit
yeah,
off of TV,
yeah.
and I was like, okay, this is not me falling, stumbling into an art show and being like, oh, that's nice, I'll buy this. It was like, okay, I gotta have that. And I felt the obsession, I felt the urge to research and find out who that person was to get that piece of art. And that's when I knew. So like the early 2000s, but then at the same time, I was in war. I was going to war every other motherfucking month, it seemed like, because the war stretched all the way for me up till 2015. So back for
Which war? The Afghanistan?
both.
Okay.
But I went to both. So so I was jumping around between that. So it's really hard to stay focused on the art world and do that. But like I said, I was in spaces where I would try to, one, be respectful of the space that I was in, but then also attempt to bring back some of their culture so I could reference it and share it with people over here and say, hey, this is what they do over there.
Hmm.
Because I think it's very important as a collector. I mean, everybody can have their shit, but if you're not, providing knowledge or providing some sort of new cultural experience for the viewer, I think you're wasting your goddamn time. And now you can go out there and be some other kind of collector, and that's fine. There's speculators and money guys, whatever. But I think ultimately, when you break it down and make the root of your purpose and mission the work, the
Yeah,
artist,
yeah.
you got to do that. You got to do that.
No, I definitely respect that. I recently had my friend who is an art advisor, and
Hmm.
she works with mid tier galleries, sometimes with really big, like sometimes brokers deals with mega stuff,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
that's mostly like her domain. And she was saying that she never believes somebody when they say that they are an investment minded collector, because what she'll do, she's always like, okay, mama, you say that, whatever. Then she'll show them a piece and she'll be like, oh,
Hmm.
I would not be, because she says that she never promises that it'll do well, but she says like, this, based on all the information I have, I would not be surprised if this piece did very well for your portfolio. And then they
Hmm.
always are like, nah, but I don't like it. So
Hmm.
even the people that think that way, according to her, they really need to be inspired by the work. Like you said, even people that think, according to her experience, even people who think that they think that way, ultimately can't do it. And one of the things she says is that ultimately you gotta love the art, because and why it's fulfilling for her to do the job. You got to love the art because it's one of the worst investments that you can make financially, like, or
Hmm.
in terms of not one of the worst, but it's least efficient. Right,
Yes.
as opposed, I mean, I didn't want to bash collecting because,
Mm-mm. Oh
yeah,
no.
yeah,
Oh no. I mean, you got to realize that, the facade of money, this is dedication. This ain't money. Now,
yeah, yeah,
there are works of art and there are things that elevate to that status, but you know, I'll play red team on her answer. Red team is where, you play like the bad guy.
yeah, yeah. Go for it.
And my only red team comment on that is, if that was the case, why is this so-called downturn happening? You know,
Tell me
there,
about the
there's
downturn. Go ahead.
well, well, if you read from what Art News and all of these other sources, not to jump on you, Art News, if you're not publishing it, but you read that there is a downturn.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
is using that word in the, I guess, in the high end
Hmm.
arts area, blue chip galleries, but that's tending to trickle down to sales for everyone.
Yeah.
Now, if that was the case, that people were just buying indiscriminately based on what they loved, there, you can't call it a downturn.
Yeah, yeah. No,
You
I don't.
can't call it,
I get
so I
what you're
think
saying.
but I think it's more about value and how people assess value to the works.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I think the purpose of, elevation of craft is to develop in your profession.
Hmm.
And there are standards of rigor that allow you to develop. And I think when you separate speculation from that, you maintain the standard.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that's as a collector, that's what I want to maintain is the standard. Speculation is speculation. And don't get me wrong, the work can be good, but if you're hinging it on what it's going to be worth,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's a bias I prefer to leave out of the game. Now I ain't gonna be mad if all of these become $1 million pieces, because then I'm gonna talk even more collector shit. But it's different because I
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
collectors love talking shit about the piece they got over their homie. Oh my god, especially rich ones. Oh bro, it is bananas, but it's crazy though. It's crazy though. So I understand that and I see it. I just think that there are different ways to do it, and I have to. I ain't no rich guy. I ain't out there
Yeah, yeah,
buying.
yeah.
You know, 15 grand is a stretch for my black ass. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to even front on it. This is a labor of love, but I think there are ways to impact and
Hmm.
assist folks with your collecting,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's kind of what I've developed and figured out that I can do okay. I can do okay at that.
Nice, nice. Well, I mean, you also are. You're not just a collector. You are also like you organize events. I see you CEO of MMXIX.
Well, that's the name of the name of the collection. It's CEO stands for Collection Elizabeth Oron. So CEO, it's just our both of our middle names. My wife
Okay.
is Beth and I am Oron. And it's just both our middle names. Collection Elizabeth Oron. We didn't, we had been thinking about, how can we name the collection? We are like, hey, let's just do conventional naming. We'll just make a cool, acronym.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that's what it was. And then the year is, and then that's just the Roman numeral for 2019.
Oh, is that what
That's
it
the
is?
year. Yeah, that's the year we officially established the collection as a project, as something that we, saw as a concrete thing that we could use, a vehicle that we could use to share, you know,
Uh-huh.
our insights and things that we believe to be culturally significant. So 2019. So Collection
2019.
Elizabeth Oron, 2019.
So okay, tell me a little bit about how you ended up in Kansas City. Um,
Bam. Now that's easy. Military. It was the last. I was here for. So they have a school here in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, right across the border. It's called Command and General Staff College.
mhm.
So you go there when you're a major, and then they teach you like hidden tricks of strategy and how to rule the world. It's like your next graduate level courses type stuff in in war.
Mhm.
In war. But it's the business of war, and they call the year. It's a year long school. You have to be specifically selected by the Army to go there. Um, and yeah, so I went and learned some stuff. I was here. They call it the best year of your life. It actually turned out to be not. I put it like this. It was a transformational year for me. And that's a fact. I met my wife here.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and then I left for Afghanistan the last time, basically out of here, Tampa, and then yeah, and I came back immediately afterwards and started working for the federal government again at housing and urban development. So it was just meeting my wife, coming to this school. So that's how I got here. Kansas City was not on my bingo card for life at all, bro. That's for
Yeah.
real. I was coming back to the West Coast, no doubt. And then sometimes, and I will tell you this: Kansas City is a in exchange of railroad tracks in the space that we have is called that where we occupy our space is called the Wholesome Building, and it's right next to these massive train tracks.
Okay.
And Kansas City used to be like the beef stock exchange for the nation. So they have a massive railway where we are, where our building is. So I get to see this fantastic network of stuff every day, and I think all of that kind of you know emanates from the mystique of Collection Elizabeth Oron. One, us placing ourselves, embedding ourselves with artists. So Caesar, I got a big shout out to Caesar because collectors hang the fuck out with artists. It will elevate your collecting.
Yeah.
listen to me. I learned a bunch of really great tactical shit when I was at the school at Fort Leavenworth, and then being able to apply a lot of that stuff to the game. But it wasn't until I started truly interacting with artists that it was really being able to become magic. And that's where, hanging out with folks like Caesar, I was gonna put all my shit in storage, man. I have so much art, you got some collectors that say, we only collect what we can put on our walls. I'm like, okay, fuck that. I'm only collecting what I can buy. And that does not, that opens up things to me, So I was gonna put a lot of stuff in storage. And then Caesar was like, yo, don't do that, bro. He said, let's talk. Because, me and Caesar have been communicating. He was smooth on the scene. I call him a center of gravity. If I was doing an analysis of Kansas City, he'd definitely be a center of gravity.
Wow. Okay.
And the thing about it is he reached out to me.
Oh, nice.
So it wasn't like I got pulled to him. He reached out to me and pulled me in, So I was like, oh, this guy is different, and he brought me a piece of work and said, hey, I want you to have this. I enjoy what you share. If you could just put it on your, just put it in your space. So, we kind of grew from that relationship and exchange of appreciation for each other. And then he started, just giving me great tips. So the first tip was, don't put my shit in storage. How about you get a space like us? And I was like, I didn't know there was rules. I was like, there were no rules, right? So I'm thinking, I was like, I can do that. And he's like, yeah. He said, we got an opening in our building, boom, boom, boom. Hit up Joey. And I hit up Joey, and next thing you know, we opened this, that became the collection viewing space. Yeah. So that interaction. So now I'm embedded with some of the baddest artists in the Kansas City area in our building, a couple of, independent artist run galleries like Wholesome Gallery, there's Sea Crusher upstairs. We got Ion Gallery that's about to open up. So there's a lot of energy plus great artists in the studio. So I was like, wow, I was just vibing off of this as a collector. I was like, oh. So I started rotating out pieces from the collection as exhibitions. So people could come through, pull up, and I usually do it in tandem with other folks in the building. Like if there's going to be an opening at one of the galleries, we'll have our space open. Like right now, we got a great show up called 45 Caliber. It's our first one-person show. It's all works. It's 40, I think 42. We tapped out. We ran out of wall space. 42 pieces by Cleon Peterson, and I think it captures the zeitgeist of the moment politically. His works and the works that we have in the show. So yeah, so we'll have open studios on the 22nd and 23rd. So if y'all want to
November,
that. Yeah,
I think this will come out in time to promote that.
Boom! Awesome.
Well, that's really fucking cool, man. I one of the things that when you're talking about Caesar, one of the things that I found very, very much reflected in your story is that since he came over as a young man and was translating for his parents, we laughed at his bureaucratic paperwork is more organized. Like he has a whole binder. Like he's been learning how, just figuring out how to function within a system, and also being undocumented, he has to do extra work to figure shit out. So I'm like, man, say what you want about privilege, but that guy's got skills that I don't know a lot of people that got.
And you explained it well. I mean, he can see the matrix.
Yeah.
He can see the matrix, and then he knows how to move within it. But then he also knows how to influence it.
Yeah.
He knows how to have an impact, even with the limitations that the system places upon him. And that's when I was like, this dude is gangster. I got to roll with this guy.
No, for sure.
And that's what endeared me to him, and is just and then also his purity to his craft, because he's showing you through, at least how I perceive it with his work, how to build a system. His work is very design oriented while he's existing in one. Yeah. That is fantastic. That is a beautiful transference of intellectual knowledge. That's he's a brilliant mind.
How big would you say the scene is in Kansas City? Because it seems, would it be accurate to say that there is a push? I'm sure COVID probably put a damper on it. It did that out here, so there's no way it didn't happen everywhere. But is it a growing scene? Is it, because we are in a time where people are maybe moving away from more expensive cities. Not, I don't know how expensive it is in Kansas City, but I feel like, like there's a lot of people that are just like, I mean, LA is great, but it's a hard life and you got to work hard, especially if you want to have an art practice. So do you find that the scene is growing out there? Because I just find, I mean, Kansas City as a concept, I joked with, with what's it called? With Cesar that it's the Berlin of America, because it's like half in one state, half in the other, but it's not. I mean, it's a silly analogy, but
not really. In many ways, there's a lot of German culture here too. So that's kind of spot on. That's kind of spot on
okay.
analysis.
But so then tell me about, like, do you feel like it's growing? Because I mean, that's my hope. My hope is that every scene grows.
I think it's, I don't think it's about growing. I think it's already established.
Okay, my bad. Yeah.
What I think needs to happen is, a regime change amongst the status quo. I think that's what needs to happen. Now, there can always be more galleries, but we have an art school. There's not a lot of those in the United States.
Yeah, the Art Institute of Kansas City.
Bona fides. It's kicking out people that are doing things in the game.
Nice.
So we got art. So that's one crown. That's one jewel in the crown. Then we have right next to, that art school is sandwiched between the Nelson Atkins Museum, which is, a historical, but they do have, a post-war collection and some stuff in there. They got a recent expansion that just was in the newspaper. And then on the other side, you got the Kemper Museum, Family Museum, UMB Bank. Don't get me started on that. But they have that type of, status quo, prototypical vanity family museum. And the Kemper's name is ubiquitous in the Midwest. They're up there. So these aren't small things. And then we got the Nerman Museum on the other side, on the Kansas side. And that museum, they of all of the museums, they're the fastest to move on contemporary art.
Really?
And oh yeah, they move real quick. I mean, at least in our region and in our area. Now, I will say this: we are, below us, we got the Death Star. We got Anne, Alice Walton down there with Crystal Bridges and the Momentary, which is just doing their own thing, And then to our east, we got the Slam, which is St. Louis Art Museum, which honestly I think the Nelson needs to try to get up to that level. Slam is their historical, I call it Indiana Jones shit, is a little better kept. And then they're contemporary, and then they're hey, I'm gonna call it like it is.
No, that's so on point.
and then they're post-war. I think they got better post-war, and then they move a little bit. Who's up there right now? I think his name is Simon Kelly. He kind of moves really quick. On pulling in some of the vibe. And it's hard to do because Nelson, they got Julian over there, and Julian's gangster too. Julian came from New York, so it's like dueling museums. But I'm gonna get a slight edge to the St. Louis Art Museum on those being peer museums. Next, but my favorite museum, at least in Missouri and possibly regionally, is the Contemporary Art Museum, St. Louis. The CAM St. Louis is fucking cooking. Those motherfuckers over there, they over there, Chef Boyardee on some shit. Yeah, they ain't playing. The best shows that I've seen, and I've seen a few across the nation. The best shows that I've seen nationwide. And, hey, I'm in Kansas City repping St. Louis. I'm not even a Missouri boy anyway, but the CAM is cooking. They on fire. Right now they got the Three Rivers Biennial up right now. Who's in that? Basil Kincaid, Sag Issa, UCLA in that motherfucking house. And then who else? Ronald Young. So those three Rivers Biennial at the CAM right now is a fire show. And if any of y'all know about Basil Kincaid, cooking. He was at Freeze, one of the new Freeze artists. I think when they first went to that, when they first went to the airport thing, Basil had one of his blankets out there. So that might have been a year or two ago, because Basil and Autumn Brion had a thing. Those are my peoples. Autumn Brion, what up? And and Basil Kincaid, my peoples. Yeah. So CAM St. Louis, fire. So we got a good art scene. I think it might be a little disjointed amongst some of the museum spaces, but we got an okay crew of curators moving about. I have access to them. I really enjoy that elevation of being able to work with good curators. I think a good collector needs good curators around them.
Yeah,
because that's how you get your taste. That's how you get That's how you get your scholarly knowledge, because we ain't out here reading books on Fauvism and got all that bullshit. Stop lying. If a collector tells you that, he's bullshitting. He's lying. So what's real is, you surround yourself with knowledgeable people in the craft. And I think by surrounding yourself with good curators, you can do that. And that's, I've been fortunate enough to do that. Caesar has been, real helpful in steering me towards good curatorial insights, stuff that I wouldn't even be cooking on, different kinds of food. I'm like, ooh, that tastes good. Let me get some of that spiciness, So I think that's important, is surrounding yourself with a solid team. And then we have that here. There are also several, ranging types of residency programs. We got Charlotte Street Foundation. Bunch of gangster artists that slid through Charlotte Street Foundation. That has afforded me the ability to, get ahead of the game. So if you know how to move as a collector, especially if you understand your limitations, and mine is I don't have $1 million bank account, so I got to move quick, be decisive, see good art, understand where the artist is coming from, and then make my choice decision. And then still find something I like with all of those parameters. So I think Kansas City is a great space to come, especially for collectors, if you want to learn how to engage with an arts subsystem, and really see, okay, this is how you should be moving in space if you are this kind of person or that kind of person. I think they have a good structure for that here. I do think the gallery scene, but the gallery scene can always be stronger anywhere you go. So I don't want to pick on the little guy and say you need better galleries. They got what they got. I think that there are, if you want to get to good art, St. Louis ain't too far away, but the museums have really held the standard here, I would have to say, with introducing new art to the public. They kind of move quick, and depending on, how rich somebody is in that particular family, you might, oh, damn, that was just an art form. And then you can go see it at their crib, which is probably the precipice before it hits one of these museums. So you got that kind of vibe going on. So we got rich folks for art here. I just think it's a difference in taste. It's a difference in taste. And if you've had somebody, it's like watching the Patriots win 10 times in a row. After a while, you're like, okay, can somebody else fucking win? And I've gotten to that point with this art space. It's like, can somebody else win? Can we get somebody else's victory lap? Can we get somebody else's appreciation for the arts? And I think that's kind of the hardest part of a status quo scene is realizing that they become status quo.
No, for sure. I mean, that happens out here too. Like there is definitely like that, the stagnation is kind of part of everything, like we've just had a recent surge in since 2016. It's almost like all of a sudden everybody realized like, oh, there's like all the, like it was like LA could not seep into the galleries, but now all the LA aesthetic is like coveted and all of that, and that is of heavy Latino influence, right? Like, and of a culture that I'm not part of, right? Like I'm Cuban, so Mexican culture is completely different. It still has some of that like same morbidity and all of that's underlying everything, but it's foreign to me. It's fascinating too, and it's exciting to see like. It's like, man, that took a long time, but okay. So one thing I want to observe is your energy level and your enthusiasm, which is definitely contagious. I was going to say infectious, but contagious is the proper word. Infectious sounds a little bit more sinister, but contagious. And I'm just kind of curious a little bit more to expand on that. The idea of your relationship as a collector, because I'm sure there's a lot of different collecting philosophies, but I really appreciate yours, especially for somebody that, you might even be a good model for somebody that isn't that rich, but is interested in becoming involved because they like, I think like when I go on dates and I meet women and they're not into art at all, I'm like, how do you live your life?
What's going on? That's like 18 red flags.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not even a red flag. It's just like, it's a compatibility red flag. It's like, I don't know how to talk to you, So I feel like there's people probably out there that have resources that maybe are wanting to get that sense of connection. So what do you think your relationship, like, what do you think about the collector artist relationship? Because you've already talked a little bit about how, I mean, I also know that Cesar is a pretty singular person because I've interviewed a lot of people and there's not a lot, like, I've not talked to many people like Cesar, you know, so much respect to him, but maybe talk a little bit more about what that, is that a cat?
That is one of my puppies.
Okay, I just saw a tail. Anyway, sorry to get distracted. I just love
No
animals.
problem, no problem.
But can you get a little bit into that, because I think that is like, that might also be instructive to artists on how to interface with a collector. Like what is it that you respond to when an artist, like, because he reached out to you, so
Yeah, he reached out to me.
maybe talk about what he suggested. Like, how did he reach out that was palatable, as opposed to like, this guy's trying to take advantage or whatever?
Nah, I hit you up. I give you a story that
Okay.
leads into the reason. And the story is, I remember I was a lieutenant engineer, and I was reporting to my it was like I was reporting to this new unit. The unit was out in the field, so they were doing maneuvers. They were in the woods, and I literally just got there, like boom, dropped my family off. Said, okay, we live here. Boom, and commanders like, hey, we're out in the field. Here are the coordinates. Meet us there. They was like, fuck in process and get your ass to the field. Like, these are gangsters. So I pull up. I get there. I finally make it out to the coordinates, the spot where we're training. It's like 3 a.m. And the first thing the commander said to me was, he pulled me up close and said, get your ass in the fight.
Yeah.
And the fight was like, they were in the room and they were planning. And these were all infantrymen, and you had armor folks and everything. And then I had a position in that fight. And I was the engineer. And that was, so I was supposed to go in there and provide, engineer advice. And he fed me to the wolves the first day at 3 o'clock in the morning, pre 7 a.m. brief, getting slides that I had never fucking seen in my life together. And then I went out there and I presented. I did it and I survived. It was fine. I put it like this. Nobody knew I was new.
Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
And Caesar approached it with that kind of zest.
Okay.
Saying, you know what? I'm gonna see what this guy says. One, he availed himself to me, and I was accommodating. I was like, hey, come on in. And then and he didn't try to sell me art. He told me what he was doing and what he would like to do. And the first thing really wasn't about me. He gave me a piece.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
He gave me a piece. Then he followed up with, hey, I got a project. I would like to share your collection. So he didn't approach me with the sale at all.
Okay.
He approached me with the environment.
Nice.
And that's a whole different level, bro. He approached me with the environment and said, hey, I want to interact in this space with you. And I want to pull you into my interactions. And I would like to share some of your, cooking with my space. And I was like, God damn, this dude's on some planetary shit. I fuck with this. I like this because, that's abstract thought. He's just pulling up. He's not saying, hey, Dwight, buy my stuff. He said, hey, roll with me on this art gang. And I was like, okay, gang, let's go. Boom, we in, And then, so we did a show at Plug Projects here in Kansas City where he did the collection. And matter of fact, we had 2 shows there. We did the initial show was text art from the collection, and we called it Words and Silences. It was great how we prepped for it. Caesar came over, he was like, we need a name for this. And then I played him this hip hop group called the what was it? It's a French hip hop group, and they were called the Silent Poets.
Okay.
A riff off the Last Poets. They called the Silent Poets, and they have and they had an album that was called Words and Silences. So one song would be with lyrics, other one would be instrumental. Other one lyrics, instrumental. Bam. I played that. That became the title, but we were hanging out in the back, smoking J's, trying to figure out how we gonna make this shit curate a show. I was like, I like how this motherfucker thinks.
Yeah.
We sitting out back listening to music, but we're basing that on, okay, we're going to do a text art show from your collection. I'm taking things that influence you, got the significant music, Words and Silences to become the show. So it was just really us doing a Vulcan mind meld, kind of coming together and saying, damn, I see you. And that's really, he allowed me to see him.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you can do that with a collector will ride with you all day long.
yeah, yeah.
I think, for me, when I see an artist, I'm there. Once I see your vision, let's go. I'm in 100%.
No, and it sounds like what he did ultimately was bring you solutions that you didn't even know you may necessarily needed,
Boom.
right?
Facts.
Like he was
Facts.
able to see, okay, this is a person moving in the scene, and he was able to facilitate your
Mhm.
interests
Yep. All
directly.
day.
Yeah,
All day. It
which
wasn't.
is
It wasn't. It wasn't me out there trying to be Big Willie. He was like, "Hey, do this, and you'll be Big Willie." I
yeah,
was like, "What the
yeah, yeah.
fuck?" And he
It's
was like,
like
"How'd you know that?" So I was like, "Damn, he was right." So we
yeah,
just
yeah,
kept, we just kept the ball going. So
yeah,
all praise goes to Caesar. Because a lot of, like I said, it was my evolution. It was like, but it also showed me that I could contribute so much more. I did not know, like you said, what I didn't know. I was like, man, I was leaving. Oh, I can do that. Okay. Oh, so I started filling those voids and trying to help people in ways that, one, I didn't know they were like, you could do whatever you wanted to do. So he
yeah,
really said, Dwight, you're free to assist. And I started assisting, and I dug on that, and I really just, and then based on my morals and values said, okay, we're going to do this for people that look like us.
yeah,
What I saw was that there are some cultural barriers, that we all deal with. The art world is not exempt from those cultural barriers, and what I wanted to do was make a space and provide a space where people that look like us could operate at a high level and do things that validate who they are as a practitioner in the art space.
yeah. I
One,
mean, if it
so
only started happening in 2016 here, I can only imagine it everywhere else, right? Like,
boom.
yeah. So that's pretty powerful. I
Mhm,
really, I mean, he was such a like. There was something so nostalgic, because
mhm, mhm.
growing up Latino, you just talk to all these people that speak Spanish, and you get into
Yep.
like their histories and stuff, and it's almost like we have this like second history of America that we're aware of that the rest of Americans don't necessarily know. So I think it's also really important to note that yeah, you guys you're talking about people that
Mhm,
look like you, but you're also
mhm,
platforming people that have no cultural relationship to your
mhm.
experience.
Absolutely.
That is really powerful because I
Mhm.
mean for me it was such a pleasure to just talk to him and see like man, I feel like a lot of artists are lazy as fuck by after talking to him, you know?
Oh, hey, don't get me wrong. I mean, like this year, like, I like to move around the art space.
uh
I'm popping in here and there, and go places where I can. Like, as a collector, I recommend collectors take a few of your artists on a trip with you, be it to like an art fair or whatever. I did that
yeah.
earlier this year with Caesar and Sam. I did that. We also brought Yashi Davalos was hanging with us, and Caitlin Jones, who's also a curator here in Kansas City. So we had a whole squad of artists and curators, and we were rolling together. And we were
Hmm.
rolling through the art fair. We hit Spring Break, Felix, Freeze. We hit all the Jones, and it was
That was
really
in
cool.
LA?
That yeah, that just
Yeah.
earlier this year in
Wow,
February.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we were
I
we
wish
were
I knew
just
you guys
there.
back then.
Oh, I know, right? Because we
I
would
would
have
have had
definitely hooked up.
I would have had so
You
much
know,
fun. I just feel
hanging.
your energy. You're like you're.
Well,
I want
going
to
to
hang
these
out with you, dude.
spaces, we gonna do that. Hey, next time we come to LA for the art fairs, we'll hang out. We'll
All right,
definitely
for
hang out
sure, for sure. Like you,
because
there is something so infectious about you. Like I feel like I can do stuff now.
well, hey, I tell you this: the art is the fuel. The
Yeah,
art
yeah,
is the fuel, and I think that's what keeps me going. Is one, Caesar showed me that if you stick with an artist, if you invest in an artist, not just the painting, but what they're doing, their entire practice. So I really got elevated into supporting them as they choose their graduate school they're going to go to, or what residency they're going to go to next, or just things like we started investing in. Hey, I need a plane ticket. I got you. And
nice.
sometimes people need help in a moment.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think being able to be able to provide strategic support um, at any given moment is something that a lot of folks do not have. And I
yeah.
try to fill that void when I can. When I can. Like I said, I ain't a millionaire, and I got a little mini operation that I'm it's growing,
No, I
because
can feel it growing just talking to you.
'cause you start helping, then you start seeing more ways you can do it, and you start trying to look at more ways to make it viable, but at the same time sustainable. I think
Yeah.
sustainability is the model I learned from Caesar, as well as he does a lot of movement. He's all over the nation. I mean, he's got a show in DC right now, but he was in New York earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
Then before that, boom, we were popping around. I'm like, hey, Caesar, let's hit St. Louis. He'll move.
Yeah.
But he moves to the gravity of good art people. Like there's the Tala Gallery in Chicago. Shout out to the folks Tala. There was this badass show. I'm gonna get the name in a minute, but it was their last show. It was killer. It was so killer, and the programming was hot. Caesar was there for some of the programming. Part of the posse was one of the Vanny Aguilar.
Yeah.
Vanny Aguilar show at Tala Gallery, off the charts. The woof woof badass art. And Caesar was there.
Nice.
But he moves around. He understands the solar system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he knows how to, like you said, and then within those galaxies and spaces, he knows how to pop in and pop out. But at the same time, he brings it back.
I didn't even know he was not in LA when I invited him, because it's so hard to tell.
Oh yeah,
I figured
moving around.
Yeah, I figured he was showing in different places, but was based in LA. Just because, well, I mean, that might have to do with I know a lot of Guatemalans out here, so I just assumed, but
hey.
Yeah. But his story is so interesting, specifically because where he ended up. The fact that he got into art school, it seems like he could have been good at anything. He just kind of ended up in art. So that's very cool. Okay. We've been going for about an hour, so I want to give you a chance to. I always ask this at the end of the episode.
Okay.
If you have anything that I haven't asked you about, or anything that I haven't been able to access that you would like to impart, it could be advice for artists, it could be advice for collectors, and stuff like that. If you feel like you've covered everything, it's fine. It's just what I do at the end, because I don't want you to go off and be like, "Oh fuck, I forgot to say that."
No, you know what? I always try to leave with this is artists, it don't matter if I don't like your shit. Fuck me. Do you? Maybe I'll have a friend that likes your stuff, but become an artist in the art space.
Yeah.
And that's how I'll find you.
Yeah.
People be like, how'd you find me? I said, because, I'm attracted to that kind of energy. So, become the artist who you are.
Yeah.
And you won't have to sell yourself. I see it. I'll see it. So just become the artist who you are. Realize that you are the market. You are the reason that I do this.
Yeah.
You are all powerful. And to think otherwise is foolish. I think as a collector, that's one of the realizations that I have. Is I understand that I'm collecting baseball cards, but these are all Babe Ruth cards.
I love it. I love it.
But these are all Babe Ruth cards. So artists, you had the power. I believe that.
Yeah.
You made me believe, and then I spend money on it.
Wow.
So you have the power. You understand that, and just and believe in that and create. That's what a good collector wants, is that. I want that energy. I want a motherfucker this. I believe in me, because I'm gonna see it.
Yeah,
you can't fake that. You can't fake that. You can't fake it. So just be you, be all of you, become the artist in the art space.
You have made me feel like I am so unenthusiastic. No, I'm serious, and this is a compliment to you, and I'm absorbing this and considering it, because I do this every week. I interview people every week. Sometimes it gets a little obnoxious because people get insecure and stuff, and and I have to sometimes I'm like,
I'll give you I'll give you the answer to that. The reason why. For a long time, I used to watch sports. I was in the military 26 years. The moment. And the catalyst was the whole Colin Kaepernick. Once that happened, I said, I'm done with the NFL. And I didn't watch for a whole year. And then it got easier not to watch. And then as I really started collecting properly, I would say, with a more integrated approach, that absence and waste of time and energy on sports. I used to be on every fantasy team in the planet.
Wow.
and I just transferred all that to art. So that
Nice.
became that energy,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So just imagine tailgating. I'm thinking about tailgating at the museum. So it was a transference of energy. Thank you,
Yeah, yeah.
NFL, you sorry motherfuckers. Yeah, but you changed me. So that shift, and it got easier to like let go of sports, kind of say, because once, and now I'm still a diehard college football fan. Go
Yeah.
Trojans all day, even though they fucking up right now. But
Wait, you're a
yeah,
Trojan? You're a USC
yeah,
fan?
yeah. My dad went to USC. My dad
Okay,
went to
okay, that
USC,
makes
so
more
so
sense.
I got to roll with the home team. So SC in the house. So yeah. But
But
yeah.
yeah,
So that transference of energy really allowed me. So if you change what you focus on, what you
yeah,
focus on will become your motivation, your infection. You'll try to get people to want to be a part of that community, because I want other folks that look like me to appreciate this, because that helps me in my echo chamber feel better and make a more community based approach to what I'm doing, because I'm hearing other voices that look like me
yeah, yeah,
versus a voice that's telling me this is what I see. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
necessarily need to know what you see. I might want to know what you're feeling, or what it reminds you of, or something that you can relate to. So that's important.
Nah, man, I definitely have gotten some. I've shed some cynicism. I mean, I'm overstating it. I'm
Mhm.
definitely not like I wouldn't do this if I didn't fucking love it. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is a passion project for me for sure. It's every time what I tell myself every time I'm like frustrated with how things are going and how the rate of growth and all of that
Mhm.
and the exchange of my what's it called for my labor. I always remember like I would be doing this either way, so stop
Yeah,
worrying about it,
absolutely.
and I think that
Absolutely.
that's what you've given me some like, because you really are like you're vibing, dude, like
Oh yeah.
you're like
But
I feel it.
but the art,
You're in
it's the art though.
Kansas. Yeah, no,
But
no,
it's the art. Yeah.
I know,
But
I feel it.
but it turns me on. It's like I have pieces in my house that are placed in spaces that are like affirmations. I got this Derek Adams, it's this piece is in the moment. So this is how collectors talk to each other. Like, hey, I was in the moment and I saw your piece. So I was like,
Yeah,
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 So I had like, yeah, I didn't even know that shit was up in there. So that blew my head up. But the piece is it's a face card of a king,
yeah,
and it's a black king. And I had that as I go out my house. I see that image every day, and I carry that energy with me. And, I have pieces of these works around me. It's almost like I'm like a vampire sucking in the
nice,
residual artist energy.
nice.
And I got my sister hooked on collecting, a few years back, because the reason was she started taking pieces from me, and I was like, nah, sis, you gotta get your own. You gotta get your own. So she was like, okay, hold my beer, and she started collecting her ass off with some good pieces, right? But she started doing it.
All right.
She saw it in the house, and she's like, at first it was just like, I just want one. I just want one. She felt it, and now her house is filled with beautiful treasures. And then I did a show where curated by Caitlin Jones, and we did it at Charlotte Street Foundation here in Kansas City, a great spot. They hosted, my first public display of the collection, and it was called Black Being. And when they came to get all the art out of my sister's house, she was like, this need to hurry up and end. This show need to come down soon, because all my chakras are off. All my karma's gone. And I said, I got your ass. That kid, got your
Yeah,
ass. I knew it. She was hooked. So
nice.
you get, that energy comes from the art. And I ain't gonna lie, my motivation, and I want other people to feel that way.
No,
So if
I
you're feeling
definitely.
it, I'm okay. I'm doing all right. I'm doing
I
all
was
right.
low energy when I woke up this morning, and I had to watch like fun stuff so that I didn't have to think about like all the horrible things happening in the world. I like
Yeah,
literally have
I
to
hear you.
like
Right?
I was like, let's watch some comedy,
Mhm.
avoiding all the news shit,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
now I'm like, oh okay, I'm feeling pretty good about what I do now. So
My work, Javier, my work isn't done here.
no, no. Well, I got to give thanks to Caesar too for introducing us.
Mhm.
Well, I definitely want you to refer some more people, because Kansas City is just such an
Mhm.
interesting, St. Louis or just Missouri and Kansas is an interesting place. It's I resent the notion of flyover country. I feel like
Oh, no,
you,
no,
you
not at
know
all.
I feel like Miami gets that kind of, like, Miami's like a vacation. I'm from Miami. Miami's like a vacation. There's a few parallels in terms of what you were talking about, with the scene. The scene in Miami, despite having this huge fair every year, is pretty small. Local artists don't necessarily get access to the opportunities that Basel brings. So it is. It's sort of like a place that you kind of like, that people take seriously but don't take seriously. So a lot of the stuff that you said resonated with me. I'd love to talk to more people that you guys can introduce me to. Just send them my way.
Absolutely.
Referrals are always a great way. I definitely want to get some more insight into Kansas City. I don't care what size the scene is. I just love the idea that people are doing it, and not everybody can live in LA, and so that's a valid way to live. And like, I might need to move out somewhere at one point.
Pull up. You know, they got a lot of spaces here. There's a lot of space here. So
cool, man. All right. Well, anything that we can promote for you, you're at Naro_Oran, right? On Instagram.
Naro Oran on IG. You can hit me there. You can also hit at CEO MMXIX on Instagram, and then you can also hit me up on Art Moves. So Art Moves, kind of like our projection lens, where we also have a podcast, and we drop.
Really? Dude, I'd love to do your podcast. I'm inviting myself onto your podcast.
Hey, we're gonna pull you on there. And then we also have a YouTube channel where we drop episodes. We're about to drop episode 4 in about I'd say a couple weeks or so.
All right, cool. Yeah.
So we got a visual component.
Yeah, just forward me that, and I'll push it on the Instagrams.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. At least I can do it for inviting myself.
It'll be fun. We had Amir Falal was on just recently. We had him. He's a great artist out of LA, cooking, just doing magnificent stuff. He had him on.
I'm not cooking so much. The podcast is more popular than my work, but I'm also not showing as much. But yeah, for sure, dude. It's been a pleasure. If you guys enjoyed the conversation, like and subscribe. Give us 5 stars on wherever you listen. Comment as well. That helps. Any kind of engagement. We also have the Patreon, which I'm starting to promote again. It's What's My Thesis /patreon.com. If you guys want to, we're getting merch together for the levels, so I'll get that out soon. But honestly, man, Dwight, this was a pleasure. As soon as this is done, I think we should both go thank Caesar.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, how pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me. Thanks for reaching out.
It's this is what I love doing it. The way that you said that the art gives you vibrancy and gives you inspiration, like connecting with other artists kind of makes those dates where the woman doesn't like art at all kind of go back.
Yeah. I hear you.
But all right, thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related.